All right, so welcome to the second video for chapter 1 of communication skill. And we're starting with section 1.3, which is rules of communication. All right, we're starting with rules of communication. The rules of communication. So communication has been described as a very vital tool in the process of managing people. It's a very vital tool, a very vital tool in the process of managing people. It is a daily occurrence at the workplace and in our daily lives. Okay, we communicate all the time. All right, so now broadly speaking, there are six major goals of communication. You have more when you begin to dive deeper, but broadly speaking, there are just six major goals of communication. So number one is to facilitate recipient level of understanding. Number two is to elicit receiver's response. Number three is to create good relations. Number four is to create organizational goodwill. Number five is to inform. And lastly, we have to entertain, which is our number six. So we'll be explaining each of them as it is, in our material, because we are using the material solely and we want to get the exact information that is being presented to us in the material. So let's start with the first one, which is to improve recipient's level of understanding. When the sender sends a message, this is the sender. Sends a message. This is the message. It's obvious to him, to this person, that's the sender, what meaning the message is intended to convey. Okay, he understands what he's sending. The person sending the message understands what he's sending. But what is not really clear is, however, if the receiver would understand the message as the sender intends it to be. Okay, that is not really clear. Okay, so the expected receiver's understanding of a message is the most critical goal or objective of the communication process. It's very important. The expected receiver's understanding of a message is the most critical goal or objective of the communication process. A message that is unable to elicit the appropriate receiver's understanding may be ambiguous. All right, may be ambiguous, that is not really clear. It has a lot of meaning. Many people can interpret it anyhow, anyway. All right, so it is ambiguous because it could be interpreted anyhow, just like I said earlier, by various parties if they were the recipients. So that is why, to improve recipients' level of understanding, that's one of the goal of communication. So that whatever I'm sending, to be informed, to be educated, that's one of the goal of communication. So there's let's look at the illustration. For example, if a manager were to leave a note on the table of his driver with the message, "We are traveling," it is obvious that the message will mean very little to the recipient, as both manager and driver will not attain shared meaning. That is, shared meaning means common ground. Common is the Latin word for communication. There's no communication. If I see a note saying "we are traveling," it's a note. Do you understand my point? There are so many things that will be running through my mind. Let's assume I'm the driver. So the issues likely to arise in the mind of the driver are many, such as: where are we traveling to? What time are we traveling? What dates are we traveling? Because all I can see is we are traveling. How long are we going to be away? What preparations do I need to make on the company's car if we are traveling in the official vehicle? Even what vehicle are we using? Those are the questions that will arise in the mind of the what? Of the driver. So the manager's message does not in any way address any of these issues. In the above circumstance, the manager's message may simply not achieve its objective. So, and that's why your message is to educate, to inform. We have to inform. That is to educate, to make sure that the receivers have the best understanding. And I think we've said this many times in this chapter. Okay, and that is what communication is all about. Common, mutual understanding, interchange of information. There's I understand what you're saying. I understand clearly what you're saying. That's communication. All right. So the second one is to elicit receiver's response. To elicit receiver's response, that's number 2. Once a message is received, the receiver will respond by one of the several actions depending on that is the receiver's understanding of the message. Many actions, several actions, okay? One of several actions. In direct conversation, when we say direct conversation, we are talking about face to face, okay? The receiver has the benefit of seeking clarity. The receiver has the benefit of seeking clarification on the import of the message. And the sender could also take advantage of the face-to-face interaction to explain any ambiguities in his message. Okay, just like the case of the illustration, the earlier illustration. If it had been a face-to-face conversation, that is a direct conversation, the manager standing in front of the driver, and the manager says to the driver, "We are traveling." Immediately, there is a communication, because there is a sender, which is the manager, information, which is the message that is being carried, and there will immediately be a feedback from the driver. And many out of all the feedback, question like, "Where are we traveling to, sir?" is possible. You understand what I'm trying to say? So to elicit receiver's response is also feedback. That's the feedback. Okay, is also what? Is also feedback. So in written communication, however, this is not possible. Immediate feedback is not possible, and the message may thus elicit varying interpretations based on receiver's understanding. Varying interpretation based on receiver's what? Understanding. And that's why, if the manager wants to communicate properly after we are traveling, there needs to be a direct intended request of feedback. What do I mean? If it is written, "We are traveling, see me now," what do you think the feedback will be? The feedback will be that the driver will go to meet the manager as soon as he sees the message, receive the message, or just pick it up or read it on his desk. So that is what we call feedback. All right, and that is what you need to do in the case of what? In the case of written communication. All right, in this kind of communication, if I want a quick feedback, I will have to ask for it. Like, say, okay, post or type your name in the comment section, or explain your own definition of feedback. I will have to ask for it. Are you getting my point? But if it is a face-to-face conversation, you could as well call my attention back and say, I don't understand something. What did you say here? Even before completing the video. Are you getting my point? And that's why, let me ask, okay, or let me solicit for the feedback. Please, whenever you don't understand anything, the comment section is there for you to give me your feedback, okay? So post in the comment section, what do you mean by this thing? And I want you to, further explain this to me. I don't get it. So that's your way of, giving me the feedback of this communication, and I really appreciate if you do that. Now let's go to illustration 1.2. A written wedding invitation, for instance, may elicit one of the following responses. A written wedding invitation. I just sent you a written wedding invitation. For instance, one of the responses that you will give me is, as a receiver, you may write to notify the sender of his or her intention to attend or not to attend. So you could say, you could write back and say, oh my God, I wouldn't want to miss this for anything, but this particular date, I have an engagement already. I won't be able to come. Oh, don't worry, I will be coming. We are here, we are there, nothing is happening. I'll be the first person you will see. When you write back, that's a feedback, okay? The receiver may also attend without giving notice to the sender, because I didn't ask for a feedback, okay? So you could as well just show up, and when I see you say feedback, okay, that's another feedback, because seeing you is a feedback, all right? Yet another possible reaction could be that the receiver may not attend without notifying the sender. It's possible. So a message that does not elicit the right response obviously does not achieve its aim. So the sender would therefore encourage response if the message, the sender would therefore encourage response if the message is worded in a way as to elicit the single most appropriate desired response. So if I want to know the number of people that are coming, I will definitely ask you to respond. If you'll be coming, please let me know. All right. So if I don't see your message, I should think that you're not coming, just like you, because I've encouraged response. So the third one is to create good relations. To create good relations. This is number 3. Another goal of communication is the creation of good relations between the parties. All right, good relations between the parties. So the sender of the message must ensure that the content of the message does not cause strains in relations. Strains in relation. These strains means cause harm. Cause harm to the relations. So primary responsibility for creating and maintaining good relations will be assumed by the sender, and this can be done by ensuring that the wording of the message looks good, positive, and encouraging. I don't know if you've heard, one of the reasons why relationship fails is, one of the major cause of breakup and all of this of the likes is poor communication. That is, anything that does not solicit for good communication. And that is one of the reasons why you need to create good relations when you are sending a message, when you are trying to communicate. So primary responsibility for creating and maintaining good relations will be assumed by the sender, and this can be done. So it will be assumed by the sender. If you are the one sending the message, you should be the one. It is your responsibility, okay? It is your responsibility to know that if I say this way, this is the interpretation that this person is going to give to it. You should assume. Okay, you should know that it is your responsibility that whatsoever you say, if you say it in a certain way that is not going to sit well with the person, you should know that it is your responsibility. Let's take for instance, let's say your dad is, you did something wrong, and your dad is, angry. that is now the time you choose to go and meet him and say, Daddy, I want to buy something. I want this, I want that. You know, the kind of response you will get. And it is your responsibility. It's not as if he's not a good father. It's because the communication is poor. You've not created good relation. As at that time, your message does not create good relation. I think you understand what good relation means. So that's what good relation means. So by can be done by ensuring that is primary responsibility for creating and maintaining good relations would be assumed by the sender, and this can be done by ensuring that the wordings of the message looks good, positive, and encouraging. So composing messages whose content do not stress the interest of the receiver is critical. Okay, the interest of the receiver don't stress the composing messages whose content do not stress the interest of the receiver is critical, and that's what creates good relations. So let's go to the fourth one, which is to create organizational goodwill. What is goodwill? Goodwill means respect, you know, the respect that goodwill can be in two ways, can be defined in two ways. We have the accounting and finance goodwill, and we have the general goodwill. So I'm referring to the general goodwill here, not the accounting and finance goodwill. So goodwill is a critical success factor in business and communication that must be used to enhance the creation of organizational goodwill. It must be used to enhance the creation of organizational goodwill. And what we are trying to say here is that communication creates organizational goodwill. What is organizational goodwill? Organizational goodwill means the respect, the reverence, the, you know, how important you are to your customers, to your suppliers, to government, you know, to your community. You know, communication helps. Note, we said communication is not limited to speaking and writing. So there are many forms of communication. You understand my point? You know, actions is part of communication. Okay, so as a business, if you give back to the community, you are creating organizational goodwill. If you create a better product, is organizational goodwill. If your consumers, your suppliers, you pay them on time, all of those things are what are organizational goodwill. And that is what to create organizational goodwill means. So the goodwill of stakeholders, the goodwill of stakeholders that the organization deals with, such as clients, suppliers, customers, government, the community, is necessary for the continued successful operation of the business. All right. Similarly, when individuals communicate, the receivers of the message must enjoy his or her sender's confidence and trust, as this is likely to facilitate the receiver's appreciation and response. Now, to the fifth one is to inform. I think we have the fifth and the sixth. So the fifth one is to inform. The fifth one, this is number 5, to inform. The central message of communication is information, which gives us knowledge needed to take decision. Okay, so inform means information. Interchange of information, which is the core of communication. Without information, communication cannot take place. Okay, without information, communication cannot take place. Information may be in the form of ideas, beliefs, thoughts, or attitudes which stimulate a sender to communicate with others for the purpose of awakening their consciousness about the body of fact available to the receiver. Awakening their consciousness about the body of fact, you know. So that's to inform. And lastly is to entertain. To entertain. And when we say to entertain, communication can be used to entertain. Just remember AY show. That's a comedian. It's all those stand-up comedy. Sabinus, those comedy skits. Brother Shaggy, you know, when you watch them, you laugh. they say something that makes, that's communication. Communication can be used to entertain, because that laughter is a feedback to what they are communicating. It's a feedback. Okay, so a person with heavy heart listening to a jester, will smile or laugh at certain critical point of the performance, thus creating what? Creating relief temporarily or permanently. Okay. So an interesting story makes the readers or listeners' heart merry. So that's all for okay, we have human communication. Human communication is very simple. It's just to let you know that human communication is just to let you know that it's a communication between humans, okay? Communication between humans. So, for example, you and I, okay, talking to you, the kind of communication I'm having right now is human communication, because human communication is strictly limited to attempts to relate to fellow humans. Okay, strictly limited to attempts to relate to fellow humans. I don't assume, I don't even think, it does not even cross my mind that a dog is writing icon. So I know I'm communicating with human being, so I know I'm communicating with you. So that's human communication. So non-human communication is the opposite of human communication, which involves communication between human and non-human beings. Communication between non-human communication would naturally involve communication between human beings and non-human beings. Okay, so communication between you and Siri, communication between you and Google Voice, that's non-human communication. Communication between you and your pets, that's non-human communication. And you saying sit to your dog, it's not as if you understand SIT, okay, or can write it down, but it's just you've created that communication. So that's non-human communication. Communication with machine, animals, or extraterrestrial bodies are what we call non-human communication. Okay, so, and that's the end for chapter 1. If you find this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you want more communication, more explanation, please check the link, the WhatsApp link. Click the WhatsApp link and join our WhatsApp group for further explanation and further teaching. See you in the next video.